This program is made possible in part by a grant from Florida Public Broadcasting Service, Incorporated.
I always wanted to be as good a pilot as I could be with the ability that I have.
Mike Gershon is about as good a pilot as there is. He's one of the Navy's aerial ambassadors of goodwill. Hello and welcome to Southern Circuit. I'm Rickley Stone. This week, Southern Circuit travels to Pensacola, home of the Blue Angels, and Lieutenant Gershon. For the next 13 weeks, Southern Circuit will journey throughout the state to visit some of the special places and people that make Florida so unique. People like Larry Harvey, tour guide at the historic Hemingway House, where he keeps alive the spirit of Key West's favorite son, Ernest Hemingway. Alive and well is how we found vaudeville when Southern Circuit stopped in Tampa to watch the world's smallest circus, put on by the Franzini family. Mark Altamar is an artist building castles made of sand, and though the sculptures last only 3 or 4 days, the impressions they make on visitors to Daytona Beach last forever. That's our itinerary. Stay with us and enjoy the journey as we take to the road for this week's Southern Circuit.
Your United States Navy Flight Demonstration Squadron takes pleasure in performing for you this, one of the many practice flight demonstrations of the 1984 season. This is Lieutenant Commander Mike Gershon, narrator for the Blue Angels.
A lot of times people ask, are you special because, hey, you're doing this job? Well, we're not average folks.
Blue Angel number 7, Mike Gershon, has always aspired to be the best. The 30-year-old Naval Lieutenant Commander has been a Blue Angel for a year now. A native of Pensacola, Gershon is one of only 2 local boys ever to make it into the Navy's crack precision flying unit in its 38-year history.
My brother is a naval aviator. My dad was a naval aviator. We grew up in Pensacola. Certainly the impact of having the Navy and every aviator that is in the Navy comes through Pensacola for their basic training. And certainly being around that and a part of it and working at the airport as a young guy out there trying to go through school and learn about flying, I think it was a lot of things that influenced me, but basically I think the interest, once I took my first flight, the interest was there and I'd been bitten by the bug and I could have never turned it off. I always wanted to be as good a pilot as I could be with the ability that I have, and that's what I did when I got in the Navy. And the Blue Angels were always not necessarily a goal that I could reach out and try to become, but they were something that set the example. That is how you would like to fly. The precision that the Blue Angels perform in the air and show people on the ground, that is what I aspired to at least model my aviation career in the military after that type stuff. And I just continued in my military career until one day I realized I actually had the credentials to become an applicant. And that is a certain amount of flight time and a regular officer, career-oriented, and I volunteered. I said, hey, I would really be honored to be a part of your team, and was lucky enough to have been chosen, of course, but which sometimes I still have to look around here and make sure that this really happened, because it really is a great job and I'm enjoying the heck out of it.
Yes, it's Lieutenant Commander Gershon of the Blue Angels. I need to add a flight onto our flight schedule today, please.
The number 7 pilot is a narrator for the flight demonstration, so for the 1984 Blue Angel team, I'm the narrator. I'm also the pilot for the news media representatives that we normally fly at each show site for the real-time promotion of the shows, and you saw that this morning. And among the other duties is if we have an air show next weekend, which we will in Jacksonville, I will leave on Wednesday, arrive at Jacksonville, do all the media rides. Then what we do is we have a meeting with the air show personnel, which includes the FAA, the air show committee, the people that are running the show, the Blue Angel liaison, and we just make sure that every base is covered. And I run that meeting and just make sure that we've got every check in the blocks to make sure that the next day, when we have the 6 jets arrive in the C-130, that we're set to go for an air show.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the left at 450 miles per hour.
If we went flying, you might come out of the airplane and say, boy, that was rough. I was disoriented, I was dizzy, the G-forces were a lot, and I don't like that. You know, that's not very good for me. But the flight that I show the media is a very benign and easy ride compared to what the guys fly in the demo. I haven't been there, but I've talked to the guys, and we go through the debriefs, and I know how hard they are on themselves to be exactly right, not an inch left or right or whatever. If you take your diamond cutter, a guy is skilled, he's got all his knowledge and his skill, and he's going to take this diamond and he knows exactly how he wants to cut it. He's going to take every bit of information he knows about that diamond, his past experience, his judgment, and he's going to make one hammer swing and he's going to slice this thing, and if it works exactly right, he's done what he wanted to do, and it took maybe a half a second of a hammer swing. 37 minutes of that intense type concentration to put on one show. I couldn't put a date on it or an age, but somewhat like today out at the beach, same setting, same summer afternoon, my mom took the kids out to the beach, which included my older brother and my younger sister, and we were walking across a parking lot of the casino, which has since been torn down and has been replaced with the other buildings you saw there today. But we're walking out to the beach, and we had no idea there was an air show on. We were just going to the beach, and they had either it was a practice show like today, or they had an actual air show going on right there at the pier, and probably about 1958, 59 time frame is what I'm guessing. And that was the first one that I can actually remember. I am a product of how well the Blues did their jobs back then when I watched them, and I think that I was looking out there and looking at the young kids, and I was hoping that we would maybe inspire one of those folks to maybe do the same thing I did. And I just did a little reflecting on that, and a product of how good the Blue Angels do their job.
My name is Larry Harvey. It'll be my distinct pleasure to guide you through a very historic house that was actually started over 130 years ago by a merchant shipbuilder. The important thing is this is the very first home that Ernest Hemingway ever owned.
As tour guide at the Hemingway House Museum, Larry Harvey gives visitors a rare insight into the life of Key West's favorite son and one of America's best-loved authors.
This is not just one of the other writers. This is a man whose place in literary history is indeed assured. It would just be a decade when Hemingway himself would die at the hunting lodge in Idaho. At that time, the estate put everything on open market, and it came into the hands of a business lady, Ms. Bernice Dixon, who opened it as a museum in '64. Ms. Dixon is still the owner and resides here on the grounds.
You know, he really helps people see and understand Hemingway, his personality. People love him as a guide. He's really a must for the place. He really helps bring people back.
He, in contradistinction, requiring so very little sleep, would breakfast daily at dawn up there, see where the table is, with Pauline.
Larry,
and he cut a gate in
I
the
think,
iron railing.
understands Hemingway. Hemingway had a great sense of humor. So many people don't know that, or don't realize it, or it's never occurred to them. And Larry understands that. He understands what made him tick, I guess.
Water trickling down into the receptacle. Forget the tile temporarily, just think of the trough being on Hemingway's back, him coming through our front gate, 5:30 one morning, Pauline looking out and saying, This time it is really ridiculous. What in heaven's name are you dragging in from Whitehead Street at dawn on your back? Oh, he said Joe Russell was just about to throw it out when it occurred to me little cats deserve proper drinking troughs like the pets of Switzerland. She agreed. Pauline's the one who shot that Portuguese tile across the front as, oh, a camouflage. I want you to know we haven't a single cat who objects at all of taking drink from a men's urinal from our own Sloppy Joe's bar room right downtown. Our cats and the raccoons in our trees, why, they're all crazy of that pissoir. But those are not his exact words. I don't know you well enough to tell you the truth of what he really did say. Even Time magazine didn't have that much gall. Now, friends, being a college professor originally, I was rather steeped in Hemingway lore. And then I had met him when I was a young boy in Paris. Hemingway was in Paris when I was a boy as a reporter for the Toronto Canadian Star. I knew Mrs. Dixon. I met her when I first came to this town 17 years ago. And of course she was already the owner of the Ernest Hemingway Museum. And she had urged me then to sometime join her staff. But I was still teaching in a private academy in Florida, and felt I couldn't do it at that time. Later, 7 years ago, I retired, and of course, immediately came here, next day.
How did you come to own this house?
Well, I knew the Hemingways for many years and always loved it, and had been trying to buy it for several years before he died. When he died, it was up for bid to settle the estate, so I happened to be the highest bidder. Very lucky there.
Dear friends, I hate to break your hearts in these days of world inflation and tell you what they paid for this place. For the mansion and the carriage house out back on 1.5 acres, both the buildings constructed before the war between the states, the Hemingways paid $6,000 and back taxes. Ladies, that's Ernest Hemingway, not Clark Gable. It's a positive ringer for Clark. But it is Papa suffering from African dysentery on the very first safari. That will thin you down, and it'll thin Papa down over 40 pounds. 'Tis thinnest he ever was in his entire adult life. Proud, but weak. And indeed, I think the more you are in this house, the more you feel as he felt about it. There is a basic script, naturally, of the objet d'art in the various rooms. But you are pretty much allowed to develop your own path, as it were. So I did.
This is my own gallery here on the beach. It just feels so good to be out here. Lately, I get claustrophobic if I'm working indoors. I'm used to seeing the sky, feeling the breeze, and hearing the ocean. It kind of helps me relax while I work. Half the time, I don't even know there's people around. I just overlook that.
The people, however, are almost always around. Often crowds of 300 or more will stand quietly for hours to watch as Daytona's Mark Altamar turns the very sand at their feet into life-size works of pure inspiration.
Did you ever see a better Christian testimony?
I've never seen anything like it before, and I've traveled a lot.
He makes it look so simple, and then if you as an individual try to do it, you see that it really isn't as simple as he makes it look.
I couldn't believe it. The likeness and what he can do so quickly. 2 or 3 hours and he's got a magnificent sculpture.
It's amazing. To me, the first time I saw it, I saw one that was so detailed. It was of a motorcycle. And the thing that impressed me, it even had Goodyear written on the tire, you know, in white lettering. But it was the detail that was so amazing to me.
I was 4 years old when I did my first sculpture, and it was the face of Jesus done in a small piece of plastic clay, and it's still in existence today. And ever since then, I've kind of gone through most of the classic medias like stone and wood and bronze, and even some unconventional things like styrofoam and toothpaste. Then I was on vacation one year and I found sand to be a really great challenge. You know, I'd never heard of it or seen it done. And I thought that because I had, you know, kind of mastered the other medias, that this would be a good challenge for me. And plus an original media. So that's when it started, and that was about 15 summers ago. And here I am today, still playing in the sand.
Although he has worked his magic in the sands of just about every beach on the East Coast, Mark prefers Florida's beaches because he says here the sculptures last a little longer.
If I keep repairing it, I can keep them alive for about a good week or so sometime. But normally I just do them, you know, work on them the first original time and then I let them go, and they usually last 2 to 3 days. They generally vary in time as far as each piece goes. Like this particular sculpture originally took me about 2.5 hours to actually sculpt and paint. Now that doesn't count another 5 hours of shoveling and preparations, getting the lights plugged in and set up, and just getting here, and you know, there's a lot more that goes into it also. And I mainly work, well, through the winter I come out here during the good weather days that I'm not real busy doing my other work. And in the summer I'm here just about every night all summer, especially in July and August. I think it's the fact that I can watch my work develop so quickly. Plus, of course, the ultimate challenge is sand to me. And to accomplish that every day is really a, you know, gives me a feeling of accomplishment. Plus, I like it because I'm outside. It's a day on the beach plus I'm still doing what I love to do. Of course, I have to give all the glory to God for it because I believe very strongly in Jesus and the way he was, and that he was God. This sculpture I painted last night, and as you can see, it's got somewhat of a green look to it because at night in the lights I can't sense the color as good as the daytime. So usually I get back here in the day and, you know, kind of give him a little color in his face. It takes many, many layers of green and yellow and orange and red and blue and brown, and then layers of white in between each layer. All together I've got about 225 different sculptures that I do, different variations of, and I'm always adding new ones to it. Every now and then I stop and think, you know, for the past 15 years I've done about 5,000 sand sculptures, and I don't have anything to show for it. Except there's a lot of photographs out there. Even though the artwork is gone so quickly, the story lives on. People go home and tell about it. And also it's an analogy of life, you know. Everything is dust to dust, you know. This is just a little quicker, you know. Just like a flower, it blooms and then it's gone. Hey, thank you very much. Glory to God.
dazzling, dangerous demonstration of 3-pin juggling, featuring 3 juggling pins and a triangle and a slide whistle and 3 internationally ignored juggling pins.
Billed as the smallest circus in the world and known as the Franzini family, Tampa's Pat Fenda and Stuart Lippy and their menagerie of estranged animals are earning themselves quite a reputation as entertainers in an all but forgotten tradition as they revive the skills and preserve the magic that was vaudeville.
What's going on here anyway?
Vaudeville is like a period of time that has been lost and forgotten, and it was real important and real big influence. Vaudeville, popular theater was the mainstay of popular entertainment for the first 30 years of this century in this country.
We had in mind to recreate the vaudeville. We were both very interested in the history of vaudeville and the history of performing arts on stage. And we were doing a parody of a small European circus, the One Ring Family Circus. We created a whole family history. We have a film on our grandfathers, and we named them all Lorenzo and Luigi, and we used to talk about our history of our family. We fabricated this whole story, and we were a parody of a One Ring Circus family. But after 5 years, we have become a One Ring Circus family.
The circus, you go to the big circus like Three Ring, Barnum & Bailey, and you have all this activity, but you never really feel personally sort of related to it. And the small circus act that we do, and we call it the smallest circus in the world, is hopefully to set up, in the tradition of a European circus, to set up a personal relationship with the audience.
All righty.
Stuart Lippy is Lippy Franzini, the internationally ignored juggler who can juggle anything. And I really admire all his skills. And he practices so much. He sweats out there. There's Snavely Franzini, the world's only trained boa constrictor. And Skeeter Franzini, otherwise known as Jojo the dog-faced boy, who's a fabulous animal and able to climb the stairway to heaven. And myself, Pat Fenda, Lizzie Franzini.
Lizzie, now be careful. I don't want anybody to get hurt, including myself. Lizzie, bring me that bowling ball. I'll show you how to juggle.
I never saw much juggling until, I think about 78, I went to a jugglers convention. And then just started as a small hobby and became really not only infatuated with it, but obsessed. And would practice for 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours a day for a period of a few years till I really sort of got some skills down that I needed.
I used to say I was a dancer, and then I had a hard time saying I was a mime. When you first start I'd say, well, I'm a dancer, but I also do mime. Then I transformed, and then I said, well, I'm a mimist. And now I just say I'm an entertainer. Probably the world's only clown, juggler, belly dancer. We do mime, we do juggling, we do a lot of clowning and a lot of comedy. Our act is really based broadly on comedy. I don't think we could be, well, we wouldn't be the Franzinis unless we were funny.
All right, everybody help me out. Yell bite as soon as I put the apple up to his mouth so he knows when to bite. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, Dion. Get ready, Dion. Are you ready, Dion? Okay! Ah! Oh! Who told him to bite the ball?
What do you enjoy most about it?
Relating to people and seeing how they react. And it's a real pleasure to see kids laughing and having lots of fun. The Franzini's greatest strength is probably their personalities. I mean, you can find better jugglers, or you can find better clowns or a better tightrope walker than myself. But quite often, highly skilled performers don't have the ability to relate to audiences, and that's perhaps our greatest strength.
The Franzini family has been in existence for 5 years, and it's been a wonderful time of my life, and it's been very interesting. It's been very rewarding and profitable and expanding for me.
You have to really love it. You have to, I mean, most actors and performers tend to be a little neurotic, because you have to be neurotic to put forth that kind of effort, because you have to get something back, and whatever you're getting back is satisfying those neuroses that you have. I'm not sure how neurotic I am in that particular respect, but it does provide a catharsis in the sense that you have an experience that is meaningful in front of other people, and it is a release. The circus, you know, you go to the big circus like Three Ring, Barnum, Bailey, and you have all this activity, but you never really feel personally sort of related to it. And the small circus act that we do, and we call it the smallest circus in the world, is hopefully to set up, in the tradition of a European circus, to set up a personal relationship with the audience. And I think that's always going to be valuable, and that's always going to be important no matter where the society goes. And our experiences are such that it seems that people get a great deal of gratification out of a live experience.
That's Southern Circuit for this week. Thanks for being with us. Next week, Southern Circuit returns home to Tallahassee to meet the woman who runs the house where Bob lives, Governor Bob Graham, that is. We'll also make stops in West Palm Beach, Lake Helen, and Gainesville. We hope to see you then. Have a good week.
This program was made possible in part by a grant from Florida Public Broadcasting Service, Incorporated.